Welcome to the 3026 Breakdown. I am your host, John Lee. Happy New Year. First 3026 of 2017. Gonna make this a good one. And in the spirit of making it a good one, I'm going to start off with a rant because I want to talk about all of the entitlement that was brought out after UFC 207. Man, UFC 207 brought out the entitled Brat in quite a few people. And I want to specifically talk about Mike Goldberg's kid, Cole, with a K, his tweets, and Ronda Rousey's mom, Anna DeMars' open letter. So first, let's talk about Goldberg. Mike Goldberg got fired. It is what it is. And I don't think it's an accident that WME, which is in the talent management business, a business which is based on being able to tell which people have talent and are going to be popular and go over with people and which people aren't, they looked at Mike Goldberg and in less than 6 months were like, you got to get the fuck out of the paint. Mike Goldberg sucked at his job, man. I'm not apologizing for it. I never thought he was good. He mispronounced names. He said weird non sequiturs. There's a faction of people on Twitter that have been pissing me off with this like bullshit nostalgia about Mike Goldberg. Nostalgia is bullshit in general. Most things that you think were good when you were a kid or that you grew up with or that you're just used to weren't actually good. Go back and watch Top Gun if you don't believe me. Mike Goldberg has sucked at his job. He shouldn't have had this job. He's been unqualified. It's a speaking job. The job is speaking, and the guy cannot speak properly. So, I mean, I understand that play-by-play is difficult. Like, I'm not one of these people who thinks I could jump down there and do a better job, but John Anik could, and they've had John Anik for years. There are other guys out there, like Jimmy Smith does a better job, Ranello does a better job. There are a lot of guys who do a better job than Mike Goldberg, and Mike Goldberg has had a very cushy, I'm sure, high six-figure, if not seven-figure job for 20 years, 13 years, 20 years, I don't know. The kid's confused, I'm confused, but the kid jumped on here, and I don't want to go in on the little homie too much because I think he's a teenager, but he jumps up there and says that the UFC should be embarrassed that they didn't do a tribute for Mike Goldberg. Are you fucking kidding me? This is all the entitled spoiled brat stuff. Dude, your dad had a super cushy job for either 13 or 20 years. I don't care enough about Mike Goldberg to research it. I honestly don't give a fuck. I jumped for joy when I heard Mike Goldberg was canceled. I wish they'd fired Mike Goldberg when I started watching the UFC in 2009. I've been bitching about him for 7 years. He's terrible at his job, and he's made millions of dollars doing it. I guarantee you he's made millions of dollars doing that job badly. And this kid thinks what? He needs like a gold pocket watch? They should have run a video tribute to him. What? So we can watch all the ways he fucked up? I don't need to watch Mike Goldberg be terrible at his job for 20 years or celebrate someone who sucked at their job. People get fired every day. Seriously. People get fired every day. People with way less money get fired every day. And if we're being real about it, people who are way, way better than Mike Goldberg at their job get fired every day. And they don't have the millions of dollars Goldberg made with the UFC. You know what Mike Goldberg's appreciation was? It was the checks that he kept getting to cash for years and years that he absolutely didn't deserve when he was highly incompetent at his job, when all these fans that are coming out of the woodwork now that are saying, oh, I miss Mike Goldberg, oh, I did him wrong, oh. You're all the exact same people. I know, I've been watching you on Twitter for 5 years. You're all the exact same people who used to complain about him all the time. This is just what humans do. We complain about things, and then when they go away or when there's change, we go, oh, we only remember the good things, right? It's why you can have a shitty girlfriend or boyfriend, break up, and still miss them because you're only remembering the good parts of the relationship, not the bad. Mike Goldberg was bad at his job. I'm not going to allow this revisionist history to happen. I will consistently bring this up every time someone tries to romanticize it. There's literally YouTube videos. There's 10, 15-minute long YouTube videos of Mike Goldberg mispronouncing names, saying weird non sequitur things, saying things that Joe Rogan immediately has to correct. He was terrible at this job, and he didn't get better. How do you not get better in 13 or 20 years? Like, Lil Wayne was terrible at rapping when he started. If you listen to Lil Wayne's first couple albums, like 400, not 400 Degrees, that's a Juvenile record, but his Cash Money stuff in the beginning was bad. But after rapping for 12, 15 years, he got good at it. Same same thing did not happen with Mike Goldberg. Mike Goldberg has been terrible at that job for forever, and now we're supposed to have sympathy for him because he lost his cushy job that he shouldn't have had for 10 plus years? No. Fuck Mike Goldberg. Glad they fired him. Psyched. I think people as a whole take being fired way too seriously. And it's usually people who are middle class or upper middle class. Like, those people act like, oh my God, being fired was the end of the world. Like, if you read that article on Sam Hinkie, the former 76ers general manager who was also terrible at his job, the guy who wanted to quote-unquote trust the process as they lost more games than any franchise had lost in any period of time. He was like, it was like a death when I got fired. It's not like a death. People get fired every day, man. I've been fired when I was doing a good job, and I've been fired when I was doing a shitty job. Like, at the end of the day, you'll be okay. You'll get another job. Mike Goldberg will get another job. He'll be able to make money. He'll be okay. You know, you don't need to cry for Mike Goldberg or, like, be outraged or feel sad for him. He had a very, very good run. That dude has made a lot of money and partaken in a lot of the quote-unquote side benefits of that job, if you know what I'm saying. And this brings me to a larger point, which is that it's never a good look when your family speaks out in public because, right or wrong, we're going to assume that that's how you feel. And seriously, Mike Goldberg, you feel like you were entitled to like some gold watch and a retirement package? Because I think if you're honest with yourself, you know the UFC stuck by you through your problems with substances. The UFC kept you on for a long time. Like, a lot of people would like to have that much job security, to have a job for 13 to 20 years that paid you really well and put you in the public eye and got you a lot of free meals, I'm sure, you know, as well as other free things that you otherwise would have had to pay for. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, but I'm not trying to get sued. So honestly, the UFC did not do Mike Goldberg bad at all. If anything, they kept him employed and gave him money for way, way longer than he actually should have been. So he should not have a beef. His family should not have a beef. They should be thanking the UFC for the fact that they have a nice house and nice cars. Speaking of family speaking out when they shouldn't, right? Like, this never works. This didn't work for Archie Manning. When Archie Manning tried to get Eli moved from San Diego to New York, when Eli was the number one pick in the draft, people were hating on Archie Manning, and the Mannings are basically like football royalty. So really, this never works out for anyone. If you're a family member of someone who's famous, you just got to keep your mouth shut and keep it moving. But Ronda's mom, Anna DeMars, whatever the fuck, I'm not calling her a doctor because I don't call people who are not medical doctors doctors. Like, you're a doctor, but you're really more like a doctor like Julius Erving was a doctor, or Dr. Pepper is a doctor. And then you're a doctor like someone who's going to, like, save me on a plane if I have a heart attack. Like, when they scream out, do they need a doctor? Someone with a philosophy degree does not need to stand up. So she wrote this open letter, and before I get into it, I want to just say, can we stop with the open letters, man? Like, we don't need to say this stuff publicly. Like, I feel like Ronda's mom courts publicity. Before UFC 193, she had all those comments about Edmund, which obviously she'd made those comments to her daughter, so going public with that was just kind of a grab for attention, and I have a really shitty mom, and I see a lot of my mother's behavior in Anna DeMars, or whatever her name is. And I just kind of think that she's a little bit of a stage mom and a little bit overbearing. And then there's like stories that she used to wake Ronda up in arm bars and like tell her she was nothing if she didn't win. There's a lot of questionable, insufficient mommying that I think we could blame this lady for Ronda's behavior. A lot of insufficient mommying here. But I wanted to bring this up because I think it ties into what I was just kind of talking about with Mike Goldberg and this idea of entitlement, and that's the great lie of America, what I basically call this. And it's, we in America, and this is very much an American thing, I've traveled quite extensively through Europe, South America, all over. I've been to like 90-something countries. This is an American thing, and it's a capitalist thing. And the lie of America is that if you're successful, you're smart, hardworking, and a good person. And really, it's less if you're successful and more if you're rich, you know? You can see with what went on with our recent presidential race, like, people were trying to tell me that Donald Trump was really, really smart because he has money. And people then assume the opposite, which is that if you're not successful or you're not rich, that you're lazy, stupid, and a bad person. And this really just isn't true, but it's something that we assume because our society in America is very capitalistic and very competitive, and it's also very binary. We're on the internet. People on the internet do not do nuance or subtlety well. I'm sure people just tell me I'm a hater with this article, which is fine, but there's a lot of gray area between this, and there are successful rich people who are stupid and lazy, and there are unsuccessful people who work really hard. As you get older, you see that luck plays a role in a lot of things, and there's a lot of things outside of your circumstances, and bad people win every day. Undeserving people win every day. Stupid people win every day. And good, smart, hardworking people fail. You can fail at things and do everything right. I've seen it, working with small businesses and stuff like that. And you can do everything wrong and catch a lucky break and end up being a millionaire. These things are just not that binary. But people believe they are because of a very common psychological bias. And this is what's called the just world bias, or the fairness bias. And that is that people believe the world should be fair. And they've done psychological experiments where they'll put two people in a room and they'll say, okay, you can have $10 to split between the two of you, but you have to agree on the split. So if one person says, okay, I'll get $9 and you'll get $1, the other person won't agree, even though logically you still are getting $1 more than you have now, but it just doesn't feel fair. And so people consistently reject those deals, and they only really accept ones that are like 60-40 or 50-50 because of this just world bias. People want to feel like the world is fair and that there's some sort of overarching plan when really the world is kind of chaotic and scary. So you'll see things like karma. Karma is a spiritual device for the just world bias. You go, oh, well, he'll get his in the end, or in the end it'll all come back and get them, or, everything comes back to get you in the end. Sometimes it does. A lot of times it doesn't, man. A lot of times bad people just stay winning. The world is not fair. And understanding that, I think, makes you a more responsible adult, and it keeps you from writing open letters where you basically say, lol, haters, you're just haters. Clearly everything's working for Ronda and she's perfect because she's been successful. I think I wrote on Twitter that Ronda's mom's open letter was basically, you're haters, with the spelling UR and a haters with an 8. Also, legit LOL, I legitimately laughed out loud at Ronda having written a bestseller, and she kind of tells on herself here because she puts co-authored on the first thing. If you go back or look at that open letter, you'll say it says co-authored in the list of her accomplishments, and then she says written a bestseller. Honestly, she wrote as much as that book as I did. The problem here is really entitlement. These people feel like they can do whatever they want. Remember when Mike Goldberg told the guy to blow him on Twitter when they put him on the NFL Network, and he had a meltdown and everyone was telling him he was terrible and he started cussing people out? This is the issue with kind of the Second Amendment, right? The thing with the Second Amendment that I think people don't understand is, yes, you can say whatever you want, but that doesn't mean that I don't have the right to respond. I feel like they don't get the part, in Pulp Fiction, my favorite movie, when Samuel L. Jackson's giving the whole speech and they're like, oh, you were finished. Well, allow me to retort, with Brat. I feel like you can say what you want. You can be an asshole. You can act entitled like Ronda and feel like you don't have to do media, but you then have to deal with people saying, hey, you're an asshole. Or, you can say the UFC should have owed my dad a gold watch and stuff, but then you have to deal with people coming at you. You are basically asking us to come at you when you say that the UFC did your dad dirty, when really the UFC gave him millions of dollars for being terrible at his job. If anything, you guys should be singing the UFC's praises, and I do not usually say stuff like that. But in this situation, the UFC is totally right. And again, super funny that WME, the talent evaluation company, came in and was like, oh, fuck no, with Mike Goldberg. Clearly, I'm not the only one who thinks he's terrible. Clearly, WME thinks he's terrible too. But that's kind of the problem with society, right? People feel like they can do whatever they want and then, not have to take the backlash, right? We saw that with the white guys video on MTV. I rip on white guys a lot too, as a white guy. But you can't talk about how racism is bad and, all these things that divide and create otherized thinking are bad, and then make that kind of video because you're doing the same thing. And that's kind of the issue with Ronda here and her behavior, and the issue with Goldberg's kid is that you can't have it both ways. You can say what you want, but you don't get to have everything and get no criticism. That's just not the way the world works. So grow up, kids. Grow up, 60-year-old Ronda's mom. And I'll be right here, so come at me, bros. This year, I'm going to be a lot less nice. But 2016, I was way too motherfucking friendly. So shit like this is going to be happening a lot more in 2017. Follow me on Twitter, @JohnsCrazyLife. Follow me on Facebook, /JohnLeeMMA. I'll be here all year. I ain't going nowhere.